What's up, guys? Welcome back to the latest episode of Chatter from the Cheap Seats. My name is Jack. I am here sitting across from my co-host, Sammy. We got a great episode for you guys today. We're going to talk some baseball. We're going to talk some basketball. We're going to talk some football. And we're going to talk these things with you. Sammy, how are you doing?
I'm doing very good. It has been a pretty busy week for me. I've had a lot of stuff going on. I started writing for a student newspaper. I have an article for that I did, and then I had a debate on Wednesday. Baseball season starting back up, which has been great. Weather's been pretty amazing for the most part these past few weeks. So a lot going on, but I'm having fun. The unfortunate thing, the Cubs have not been on TV too much. I caught them. Funny thing, I caught them yesterday. They were playing the Angels, and of course, the one game they're televising on MLB Network, the Cubs. It's some no-name guys give up a 10 spot in the second inning, 10 runs. Like they went through, I think, 15 batters in the inning, and the Angels were kind of starting everybody. Shohei wasn't playing, but Trout, Rendon. So, I mean, the Cubs were getting crushed, but it was fun to see those guys. I mean, just go off. I mean, and we'll be talking about the Angels actually later today. Tease. We'll be talking about the AL West, which is our final division before the season starts. We're almost there at opening day, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, so that is what is going on with me. Pretty busy over here. Jack, how are you doing? And I guess, how are your brackets doing? Because we don't focus too much on college sports here. We're mostly professional sports, but March Madness is going on, so we'd be fools not to talk about it a little bit. I mean, no one's bracket's really good anymore. How is yours at this point?
No, yes, we are in the full thick of things when it comes to March Madness. My bracket is not doing too hot. I think I'm in fourth place right now. There's still, Elite Eight, Sweet 16, Final Four, championship game. That's where the money is made. Yep. That's where the big bucks are made. And Sammy, before I tell you how I'm doing, I have to write. I wrote it out, but I have to say an apology to you.
Oh yes. All right. Let's hear. This will make me very happy.
Sammy, Morris, Crimstein, I have to apologize to you for saying that the Giants won't sign Kenny Golladay, because they did sign Kenny Golladay, and I am freaking ecstatic about it. I could not be happier that the Giants signed Kenny Golladay. If you could not hear it in my voice, I could not be happier that the Giants signed Kenny Golladay. We got him, baby. Oh, let's go. One of the best secondaries in football, with the signing of cornerback Adoree Jackson plus Kenny Golladay. The Giants are stacked. They're ready to compete for the NFC least. And yeah, I'm doing well, Sammy, on a personal note.
Yeah, then thank you for the apology. I appreciate it. I mean, I've been pretty good. I think my track record with predicting offseason moves, I think the week before Lindor got traded, we did a mock trade episode, and I had him going to the Mets, and I had...
You're never going to let us live that down. The amount of times that you've said that, Sammy, but...
Yeah, you know what? I think I might be a genie or something.
Sammy's a genius. He's a genius. That's all you can say. He's a kid
and a
genius. And a genie. He's both at the same time. Multitasking people. We are a multitask pod.
Yeah, but back to just for a second here at the beginning, March Madness. Let's talk about a little bit. And my brackets, it's just not going well at all. My Final Fours aren't too horrible.
Who's your Final Four?
I had Illinois and Ohio State. Both had going to.
That's pretty hard.
That's 50%. Not good, actually. And my error, my big thing is, I trusted this year the Big Ten teams to be really good, because all throughout the regular season, the Big Ten was the conference, man. I mean, there was so many great teams, and I thought that would translate a little bit better over to March. But here we are. Michigan is the only Big Ten team left in the NCAA tournament. That's crazy, because That was what I was betting on. I was betting on a lot of these Big Ten teams doing really well, and they didn't. They choked, and now all of a sudden there's like what 4 Pac-12 teams or something. So this has been a crazy year. I love it. At this point, I'd have to say I'm rooting for Loyola Chicago. Got it, with my Chicago roots, I suppose. Sister Jean is the GOAT, possibly the best sports figure in Chicago. It must be. I mean, Cleo Mack
Going
is
into
back with
this season, Sammy, going into this season, was there any chance that you thought that you would be rooting for Loyola Chicago and not Kentucky come tournament time?
Yeah, no. I thought, I mean, because we had the number one recruiting class. I thought we were gonna be a 2 seed guaranteed, Elite Eight run at least. I was hoping to get another, last championship has been a while, but get another one, get another championship. I mean, and things just turned out horribly. And I've talked about a little bit before how frustrated I've been with this year's Kentucky team. It's just, I'm a Kentucky fan. If you're listening and you don't already know, it's been a frustrating year. And I trust Calipari. This is a one-time thing. I'm hoping. I think he'll probably get some good guys through the transfer portal, and I'm sure he's always got a lot of great recruits. So I'm hopeful that next year will be a little better. But yeah, I did not think that here March 23rd, I would be rooting for Loyola Chicago. I thought Kentucky would be making a run here, but did not work out that way. FSU still going strong. I have them in my Final Four for almost all my brackets. So I am rooting for FSU, Jack, as much as you probably are.
I don't think you're rooting for them as much as
Yeah,
I am,
yeah,
Sammy.
that's a lie. That's cap. That's cap.
Yeah, that is cap, but I have them in my Final Four. I need them to win because I'm down in my brackets. And if I want to make money, I need Florida State to go on a little bit of a streak here. And Sammy, some other guys who made some money recently in NFL free agency, week 1 recap, Sammy, who got signed?
A lot of guys got signed. And, after we were covering MLB offseason, a few months ago, and we really realized that football, there are so many free agents. MLB is obviously limited because of arbitration, and guys don't have as many rights, to be honest, but a lot of guys got paid, and the MVP was one of them, Mitchell Trubisky, and it's a little bittersweet for me, to be honest. I didn't think it'd be super sad to see this guy go from the Bears after what is like 5-year tenure, but it's over. The Mitchell Trubisky era in Chicago is over. He is now going to be a backup to Josh Allen in Buffalo.
He
1
was
year,
there for
5 million.
5 years.
God, well, because 4 years maybe. I mean, because we drafted him in the 2017 draft, so 17, 18, 19, 20. I guess 4 years technically, but we're not a math pod, as you all know.
Not
We
a
are
math
word
pod.
pod, but it is sad to see Mitch go. I mean, he wasn't, obviously didn't work out, but he was. It's tough because he was like your number 2 pick, and it really signifies that you failed, right? Like before, we were always holding out hope. Maybe he'll turn it around. Even last year, we were like, he showed some glimpses of being really good, and we're like, okay, maybe Mitch is finally going to turn it around, and he didn't. What I will say, he gave me the most fun season of football I've ever watched for the Bears, 12-4 team. He led us to a playoff run, and I think that was a Super Bowl caliber team if Cody Parkey was not a horrible kicker. So, um, but yeah, I thank him for his time in Chicago. It's sad, but he's off to Buffalo. Some other signings. We'll run through these quickly, and then we'll highlight a few of them, talk about a few of them. Will Fuller to the Dolphins, 1 year, roughly $10, $11 million there. Cam Newton resigns with the Patriots. We'll talk about that one because that definitely raised more than a few eyebrows.
And we talked about that, and we talked about that a little bit last episode also.
Yeah.
So we won't spend too much time on this episode.
And, Hunter Henry, tight end to the Patriots. Patriots making a lot of splashes. Johnny Smith, another tight end to the Patriots. Matt Judon to the Patriots. Juju Smith-Schuster got re-signed and staying in the wide receiver class, which was really stacked this year. Not too much moving around. The only big guy, I guess, on this list who really got moved, Kenny Golladay to the Giants. Allen Robinson got franchise tagged. He's staying with the Bears, and Chris Godwin is staying with the Buccaneers. He also got the tag. The Chicago Bears cut Kyle Fuller, and he went to Denver. That's a pretty big move, which I'll have some words about. Yannick Ngakoue to the Raiders. Shaquille Griffin to Jacksonville. And Andy Dalton to the Bears. I have some words about that as well, of course. And last, but definitely not least, Ryan Fitzpatrick to the Washington football team. Fitzmagic is coming to Washington. So, Jack, let's start with your guy, and we already talked about this a little bit. Kenny Golladay, huge blockbuster signing for the Giants. This is big, and in a division that is going to be competitive because no one really sticks out as a clear, the clear best
Front
team in
runner.
the division, a clear front runner. Yeah, Kenny Golladay, as a wide receiver one now in New York, that makes a huge difference because now you got a legit wide receiver one, if he can stay healthy, which he should, a legit running back one, Daniel Jones, who you're hoping with an extra weapon can really shine and have a breakout season. So you have to be super excited about this as a Giants fan, Jack.
Well, Sammy, it was a gala holiday in New York over the weekend as Kenny Golladay signs a 4-year, $72 million deal with the New York Football Giants. No, I think that if he can stay healthy, which I don't think is that big an if as people think, this season, yeah, he was hurt, but it was also like if he was playing for a team that was competitive, he probably would have come back a lot sooner. It feels like he was questionable every week. And before this season, he only missed one game. So I think the injury prone narrative is a little bit blown out of proportion. And I think you don't want to be, if you're the Giants, you don't want to be stuck in the same situation that the Jets are, except you won't have as high a pick as the Jets. You will be stuck in the same situation that the Bears have been put in year after year after year. You're too good to draft a quarterback, but you're not good enough to make the playoffs or make a deep run in the playoffs. You'll be stuck with Daniel Jones, and you won't know if he's good or not. He's mediocre. You don't have the weapons around him. And
Now we know.
now, our O-line is bad, but outside of that, there's no excuses. He's got the weapons. He's got the defense. He's got the coach. There's no excuses. This is a make or break year for Daniel Jones. And I was listening to Talking Giants, the podcast. You guys should definitely check that out. And Bobby Skinner brought up an interesting take, and I want to see what you think about this. Okay.
Yeah, bring it on.
So another young quarterback, Josh Allen, correct?
Yeah, one of my favorites for sure.
One of your favorites. Now, Josh Allen, and he did lead his team to the playoffs in his younger years, but just remember, the Bills are a much better team than the Giants, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Well-rounded. Bills are a solid team.
So Josh Allen is a guy, year one coming out of the draft. His first year, he didn't have, he showed flashes, but he wasn't like that Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, where he's the guy, right? Like he showed flashes. It's not like a complete bust. It's not like Dwayne Haskins-esque, but he showed flashes, but he wasn't like that. He's your franchise quarterback, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like for Josh Allen, you're saying?
Yeah. His first season.
Now you know. Yeah. I mean,
now you know.
First season, it was not so clear.
Now, his second season, made some progress in some areas. In other areas, he regressed a little bit. He's always had the arm talent, but, it was another year where he showed clear potential and clear flashes, but he didn't put it all together, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then what did the Buffalo Bills do? Who did they go out and get after Josh Allen's second year?
They went and got Stephon Diggs.
Stephon Diggs, baby. They went out and got Stephon Diggs. Year 3, Josh Allen is a top 5 quarterback in football. Now,
okay.
I am not saying that Daniel Jones is going to be Josh Allen. What I am saying is year 1, Daniel Jones showed flashes, showed the deep ball accuracy, the best deep ball accuracy passer in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus. Year 2, regressed in some areas, showed some speed, showed some agility, had some injuries, showed flashes again. Year 3, go out and get Kenny Golladay. I'm not saying he's going to be Josh Allen, but I would not be shocked if Daniel Jones can be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL next year. And this is not my take. This is Bobby Skinner's take. from Talking Giants. So I just wanted to lay it out there for you and
Yeah,
see what you think, because I think it's
I
pretty
think that's
interesting.
I think that's a very interesting thought for sure. It's I think it's a pretty fair comparison to make because Josh Allen's uh, issue was the turnovers. I mean, that QBR, the interception rates were very well. The QBR was low. The interception rates were very high at the beginning part of this career. And um, for Steph, he always had the arm talent, and I think Stephon Diggs definitely gave him more confidence to be able to use that arm because that's going to be a guy that's going to catch it. Similarly to Kenny Golladay and but I don't think Stephon Diggs is the sole factor in terms of Josh Allen's success in 2020. Josh Allen clearly was a different quarterback. It wasn't just like he was the same guy. Now all of a sudden he has weapons. He put in a lot of work, I think, on the mental side of the game because his stats, it's remarkably different. And what happened was he already had the arm talent. We knew that he had that just raw athletic ability, but he worked on the mental part of the game. He figured that out, and once he did that, all of his stats, not only the interception stats got better, not only the QBR stats got better, but he threw more yards, more touchdowns, and you got Stephon Diggs. So I think adding a guy like Kenny Golladay will give Daniel Jones more confidence, but it's not the sole factor. It wasn't the sole factor for Josh Allen's success, and there's still more work that needs to be done. But Daniel Jones, Jack has said this a lot, has shown a lot of promise to be your guy in New York. He's shown a lot of promise to you can almost feel confident he could be your QB1 if he really steps it up. So that's what you're looking for. I don't think Galladay is going to guarantee that, but it's a nice addition that'll hopefully help your young quarterback develop and gain more confidence.
Yeah, I think that, and I agree with that. I think Josh Allen had the arm talent. Daniel Jones did not have the arm that Josh Allen has, but it's still,
Right.
It's still a food for thought. It's something to think about. And Sammy, your Chicago Bears, the Bears sign Andy Dalton 1 year, $10 million. And a lot of Chicago fans, a lot of sport fans in general are hating on this contract. What are your thoughts on it?
Not a fan. I mean, I can't be a fan. My mindset going into this offseason, there's a press conference that Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy had a few weeks ago. And they said, I'm not going to get the exact words right, but in essence, they were going to go all in. All options were on the table for the QB position. That led us Bear fans to believe that they were, going to make one of those big splashes. And I'll give them this. They tried for Wilson. They were going to give up a lot for Russell Wilson. The report came out on what the offer was for Wilson, but it was ridiculously high. And the Seahawks just said he's not being traded at this time. And that was okay. And the Bears went and signed Andy Dalton. And I think people are hating on it too much. I'm not a fan of it. I don't want people to be like, wow, Sammy thinks Andy Dalton's going to be the MVP next year. MVP. But Jack, you're muted.
Say that one more time. I was just saying that Sammy thinks that Andy Dalton was going to be the MVP next year.
What?
I was just tweeting that out. You just said that you think that Andy Dalton will be the MVP next year, right?
Oh.
And I'm not saying MVP. I'm saying MVP.
No, but that is not what I was saying. That is
really?
Not
I mean, I just tweeted it out. So
that is quite unfortunate. Yeah, I know. I don't think Andy Dalton's going to be an MVP kind of guy. Obviously, I mean, he's not Russell Wilson. He's not. He's hardly even a starter in this league. It's frustrating, and what I'm angry about is that you lead us to believe that something big was going to happen. That this is going to be the year that the Bears finally solve the age-old, mystery of why we can't get a good quarterback in franchise history. I mean, I've talked about it before. Our best franchise quarterback is basically Jay Cutler and some guy from the 40s, Sid Luckman. Once again, we get Andy Dalton, and if he's going to be the starter, which I think the Bears are definitely going to try and add to the QB room, I don't think he's going to be the one option. Andy Dalton's guaranteed the role, although he did say, strangely enough, that he was guaranteed the starter role, that the Bears said he was going to be the starter, which is curious. But um, what I want to bring everyone's attention to is that the Russell Wilson thing is not dead, or not as dead as it seems. I think the chances are very low of it still happening. But Adam Schefter, one of the best reporters out there in the NFL, he was kind of talking about how closer to the draft the Seahawks may be willing to deal Russell Wilson. And I think it was interesting because what they said was, we're not willing to deal him at this time. So, and Schefter was kind of taking that as maybe by the draft, he could still be dealt. The Bears could still get him, whatever. But in terms of that's still a very low chance. I'm not betting on that. But in terms of Andy Dalton, I'm going to give the Bears the benefit of the doubt on this. But my expectations are not too high. Obviously, he struggled with Dallas. I mean, pretty talented offense, and he just wasn't nearly as good as they should have been. So those are my thoughts on Andy Dalton. It's a lot of things to process for me. It's definitely a new era, I think, of Chicago Bear football. It's looking like it might be a new rebuilding era, possibly, especially considering we also cut Kyle Fuller, which was shocking to me, to be honest, to clear cap space, because then that was before Golladay signed, so it kind of looked like we're trying to go after Golladay, but now he's not anywhere, so we kind of cleared cap space for nothing, unless there's something else up their sleeve. Like, the Bears are very confusing, and then there's like a whole rumor about trading Akeem Hicks, which has died down, but it's been a crazy week as a Bear fan, I'll say, from Andy Dalton to Mitch Trubisky signing with the Bills, which I already talked about. But those are my thoughts. I know it's a lot, and I kind of drifted off a little bit, but overall, that's kind of how I'm feeling about this. I think Bears fans, don't lose hope on Russell Wilson, but don't bank on that. Don't bank on the Russell Wilson thing happening.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting because the Bears were like, it came out that the Bears were in second place in the Kenny Golladay sweepstakes. I didn't think
Yeah,
anyone thought that they would be
yeah.
that in it,
I was surprised. I mean, because we already have Robinson. He's franchise tagged. He's our number one. And I think part of that was maybe because Robinson, once he saw that the Bears were trying to go after Golladay, that's when he kind of signed the franchise tag. So maybe that was part of the Bears game. But Darnell Mooney's our number two, who's incredible. One of the faster, really great feet, great route runner. So I didn't really see the need for Golladay. I think if you were to spend money, wide receiver was not the position we needed. I think we already have a very good wide receiver core.
I agree, but
Yeah.
man, I mean, Sammy, that would have been nasty with
That would have been
Mooney,
nasty. Oh, possibly
Robinson,
the
and
best in the league.
Galladay.
Possibly the best in the
The
league.
chips didn't fall where they fell, and I don't think anyone would have predicted that. But Sammy, something we will be predicting is the AL West standings. Our last preview and prediction for the 2021 season. And Sammy, who do you have in last place in the AL West?
I mean, for me, it's kind of a no-brainer. I think this team stands out as being the worst in this division. A confusing offseason, and I'm going to go with the Texas Rangers. I have them winning 69 games, 69 and 93 for the Rangers, and this team is not good. But this offseason, they kind of seems like they wanted to compete. Like, you lost Lance Lynn, which is kind of a sign like, okay, these guys are going to have no chance to compete. It's rebuild time. But then you go out and trade Elvis Andrews, who's been kind of your franchise shortstop, not like no incredible like Francisco Lindor talent, but he's been your
He's
guy.
at the end of his career, though.
He's at the end of his career, but he's kind of your franchise guy. I'll compare him to like Anthony Rizzo. Like, he's been in Texas forever. And you trade him away for Chris Davis, who nothing against Chris Davis. I mean, man has serious pop in that bat, but why? If you're going to be making trades, maybe trade like Joey Gallo for some prospects, or trade, I don't know. I mean, they signed David Dahl, which he had a horrible year. That could have some upside to it, but I don't understand why they brought in Chris Davis. This rotation, they didn't really do much to address it. Is very lackluster after losing Lance Lynn. I mean, Kyle Gibson is seemingly your ace. I mean, they acquired Dane Dunning, which I like Dane Dunning. We talked about that a while ago, but he's not nearly at the point where he's going to be like an ace of your rotation. I don't know if he's ever going to be that for the Rangers. Lackluster rotation and bullpen. I don't really understand why they got Chris Davis this offseason, because they're not a good team. That didn't make it any better. They should have went and got prospects instead of that. But I have them winning 69 games. It kind of is what it is for the Rangers. Good thing, though, they will be opening at full capacity. Maybe not for COVID rates. That'll probably not be too good for that. But just to see a full stadium of fans will be nice.
Yeah, I agree with that. Sammy, you said it best when you said this baseball team is not good.
Yeah.
Sammy, this baseball team is not good. I like David Dahl. I like Nick Solak. I don't really like Joey Gallo, and they kind of doubled down on that, getting Chris Davis, because Joey Gallo and Chris Davis are very similar type hitters.
High strikeouts,
high RBI, high home run, high strikeouts, low average, and their bullpen is not good. Their starting rotation is not good. Their lineup is not good either. They're just all around a bad team. I have them winning 75 games.
All right, let's move into fourth place. And this is actually, I struggled here, to be honest. I have the Mariners in fourth, but I like the Mariners. I think the Mariners are, they have a great farm system. They are heading in a great direction. I like what's going on. I like signing Paxton back for a team that's kind of in this position. It's not super high priced, but a very serviceable arm to head up that rotation. I have no issues with that. And I like how they're acknowledging, like, hey, we don't have the best rotation. We're not going to go out and sign Trevor Bauer or whatever. Not that was ever in the conversation, but just to make a comparison, I like James Paxton acknowledging that he's going to kind of be your front guy. I think with Marco Gonzalez too. And you have a lot of shining pieces on this offense that I think I really, really like. Kyle Lewis, one of my favorite players right now. I love watching this guy's highlight reel from last year, because last year was his rookie year. I mean, this guy makes plays in center. He's a great hitter. I feel like he's always barreling up baseballs. He's a fun guy to watch. And then you got Jared Kelenic, who may or may not make his debut. We'll see what happens there, but he just the spring training has been electric. So I'm very excited to see what he does at the big league level. And then you got some serviceable veterans, Mitch Haniger, Kyle Seager. This isn't a horrible team, not a good team. They're not a plus 500 ball club. I have them with 74 wins, but I will say I thought about putting them in third place in this division, but I decided to hold back on that. I just don't think they're quite there yet. But I mean, like a lot of teams, these guys are heading in the right direction, and they'll be at the top of the league, at the top of this division, I think sooner than we realize. Blah.
Sammy, it pains me to say, but I also have the Seattle Mariners I have them with 78 wins.
Okay.
And I'm high on the Mariners, but their prospects aren't fully there yet. Taylor Trammell is gonna come up this year. He'll start the year with them. He is one of their big prospects. Obviously, Kyle Lewis. You got Kyle Seager, Mitch Haniger, I think is going to have a big year. I really like the shape of their lineup. Jared Kelenic.
Mitch Haniger's underrated.
Mitch Haniger is underrated, and we will get to that later with the NBA talk. Underrated, overrated, coming up, tease. And I think James Paxton is going to have a good year. With the Yankees last year, he had a back injury, and he was sitting 90 miles an hour pretty much all year.
Impressive.
This year,
probably be
spring training. In spring training, he was touching 98.
Really?
Yes.
I did not hear that. That's
yes, and that's why
he would be more than serviceable, as I described him. I mean, Paxton has some serious upside, and now that you bring that up,
he could be more than serviceable. He could be more than serviceable. And Sammy, I'm going to move on now to the next team in my predictions, and that is the Los Angeles Angels
of Anaheim. You got to remember that.
Of Anaheim. And they are one of the most frustrating teams in the MLB because they have money. They got Mike Trout. They got Anthony Rendon. And their starting pitching is just, I mean, Andrew Heine, Dylan Bundy, Jose Quintana, Alex Cobb, Griffin Canning, obviously the Showtime Shohei Ohtani. But when you have Anthony Rendon and Mike Trout in the same lineup, you got to win. You have to. It's a disservice to baseball to not win.
I agree with you. The most frustrating team in baseball is the Los Angeles Angels. They're a big market team, like you said, with a lot of money, a lot of cash that they could go out and spend. They have some of the best star power in baseball. I think you have 2 top 10 players, 3 MVP candidates on this team. I think Shohei Ohtani, if he's healthy, I mean, if that guy can have like an under 4 ERA and hit like 30 home runs, MVP. Or he kind of had him, or he had him as his pick last year. So, um, but it's so frustrating because you take those guys out of the equation. You take Trout out of the equation. You take Rendon out of the equation, and you take Ohtani out of the equation. This is a below average team, and this rotation is god awful. One of the worst in baseball. Let me just take a look here. Um, yeah, they were the 6th worst pitching staff in baseball last year. Everything considered, starting rotation and bullpen, and it's not getting any better. I think they wanted Bauer. Angels fans wanted Bauer, and to add insult to injury, he's on the other side of Los Angeles, or I guess that's how you describe it. I know that's how you describe it in Chicago, but he's playing for the other Los Angeles team, and that's brutal. If you're an Angels fan and your rotation, you add Quintana, but you add Alex Cobb. I mean, that's not going to solve any issues. Those are average to below average veteran guys. That's not going to do anything for this rotation. And man, I want to see Mike Trout win some playoff games.
We all do.
I want to see this guy on the biggest stage because us living in the Washington, D.C. area on the East Coast, we don't really even get to see that much of Mike Trout. He's always playing when he's on national TV. He's always playing at like 10 o'clock at night. We have to go to bed. So it's sad. I want to see this guy play baseball in the playoffs, and with this team, he's not going to. 81 wins, I have them. I think that's a little high even for them. But the star power really helps. But besides that, you're lacking. You're lacking. I don't know how else to say it. Second place, Oakland A's. They won the division last year. They are a good team, and they did lose some pieces. Chris Davis stayed in the division, but he went to Texas, which we already talked about. But Elvis Andrews, I think that is, I think that's a pretty good. I mean, not an upgrade from Marcus Semien, who you also lost. I mean, because they did lose a ton of offensive pieces, but I think Elvis Andrews is going to be very serviceable. He's a veteran. He's a good presence. I like having him at shortstop. Not as good as Semien, but he's going to be serviceable. And you're a great defensive team. Let's remember this about Oakland, too. And I talked about this when talking about the Cubs, but when you have good defenders, I'll give you a few extra games than maybe you deserve because you win games, especially with these kind of guys. Chapman, best defensive third baseman in baseball. I think there's an argument to be made for that. Maybe Arenado's better, maybe Machado's better, but he is right up there, incredible with that glove. Matt Olson, one of the best defensive first basemen in baseball. And then Laureano out there in the outfield with just an absolute cannon for an arm. He's super fun to watch. And these guys are going to be making plays on defense. And the offense, yes, is going to be diminished. The pitching is even going to be a little bit diminished because Liam Hendricks, your best reliever and a great bullpen, is leaving. But don't be fooled. This is still a good team. Maybe not as good as last year. Still a solid starting rotation. You got Frankie Montas, Sean Manaea, Mike Fears, I mean, pretty well-rounded rotation there. Still a pretty good bullpen. You go out and get Trevor Rosenthal, Sergio Romo, the veteran. This is still a good team. They're diminished from last year, but 88 wins for Oakland. Jack, what are your thoughts? Or if you have the A's in second place, you may have the Astros, but
I do have the A's in second place.
What are your thoughts?
And this was a tougher decision than some might think to put them in second place. I really like their lineup. I think Matt Chapman and Matt Olson are 2 of the most underrated players in baseball. I think that duo is incredibly underrated.
one of the best corner
Both
duos
of
in
them,
baseball.
both of
I
them
think that's
are
right up there with
high
the Cardinals.
level elite defenders. They are
Right up
elite,
there with the
elite
Cardinals.
defenders, and they have power. They're going to give you. I mean, Matt Olson, Matt Chapman are both going to give you over 30 home runs a season.
Olsen could win the home run title. I think
Olson
that's not
can
out
give
of
you
the question.
30 set. Olson can hit 40 bombs. I mean, I
Oh
like
yeah.
Mark Kenya. I obviously love
Yeah.
Ramon Laureano. Starting rotation, Jesus Lazardo and Sean Manaea. I like them a lot. I like Frankie Montes a lot. Not a huge fan of Chris Bassett. I just don't know. I think
He's a
he's got a
stinker.
yeah, I like his sinker, but I'm not a huge sinker baller guy unless your
Yeah.
sinker's Zach Britton, which he doesn't say. Zach Britton doesn't throw
Or
a
Kyle
sinker.
Hendricks.
He throws a 95-mile-an-hour curveball. But and now I'm going to move on to my first place team, the Houston Astros, Sammy.
Yes, sir. Do you want to talk first, or should I talk first
I'll
here?
talk first. I have them at 92 wins. I think if you look at the Houston Astros top five, they're right up there with the best top five hitters in baseball. If you look at their lineup, it is Jose Altuve, Carlos Correa, Michael Brantley, Alex Bregman, and Yordan Alvarez. I mean, those are five legit players.
That's a
Yordan
lot.
Alvarez, I think, is going to have a huge season. Zach Greinke is going to be Zach Greinke. McCullers is going to be McCullers. Odorizzi is going to shove. The injury to Framber Valdez hurts, but I still think they have enough to in the tank to win the division.
Yeah, they did suffer some pretty big injuries in terms of your starting rotation. Valdez maybe will be back. Like, who knows? I mean, it's kind of tough to tell at this point, but I love Valdez, and if he could get back, he is so fun to watch. I really really like Valdez, and he could be a legit ace if he's healthy. He's not, but this rotation is below average. I think without Valdez, it's not too great. Verlander's hurt, and even like Forrest Whiteley is hurt, like who could possibly been coming up this year. So a lot of injuries is hurting these guys rotation wise. But you add Odorizzi, which is huge. When you're suffering a lot of rotation injuries, he's gonna shove. Like Jack said, Odorizzi is going to shove. And this lineup, like you were talking about, so explosive. I don't know how else to describe it. It's so many stars, star power, star power, star power, and hate him, as much as you want because of the cheating scandal. We all kind of do at this point, but you can't deny the talent. Altuve is incredible. Bregman's incredible. Correa, Alvarez, Brantley, and then you lost Springer. But I mean, it's not really hurting you too bad because you're such a deep lineup that it's going to be okay. I mean, Kyle Tucker had a great year, even a great 2019 as well. I think Kyle Tucker is very underrated. So, really, really good lineup. Lackluster rotation, but it won't matter. This is a weak division, could possibly be weaker than the NL Central. I think there's an argument to be had in terms of the weakest division in baseball, but I think the Astros are plenty good enough to win this division. I think there will be competition between them and the A's, but I think they'll come out on top. They're the better team. Lineup
I would
far
agree with
better.
the fact that they're the better team. And Sammy, we're going to get to some players that might be overrated, might be underrated. We're going now to the basketball, and we're going to talk about overrated, underrated NBA point guard. So
Yeah,
we're going to start off in. You want to do overrated or underrated first?
let's start with overrated. Yeah,
You're going to
I'll let you
start.
go first.
We're going to start with overrated. And my overrated point guard is one Kemba Walker.
Yeah,
Now, I think Kemba Walker, he was brought into Boston to sort of be a replacement for Kyrie Irving, right? And
there's no way that was happening.
I mean, he's a three-time All-Star in his last three seasons. He was at the top of his career, and now he's averaging his lowest points per game since 2014. It's like,
It's rough.
I think, but people still have the expectation that he's that all-star player when he's just not,
Yeah, like Boston's been pretty bad. I mean, you think about Boston and you got Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. This team should be winning more games. And they're just not. They're playing bad basketball. They're sub 500 right now, but that'll get into the playoffs this year in the Eastern Conference with ease. So, but yeah, I agree with that take. Kemba Walker's had a pretty awful year, and he is hurting that team. I'll say it. He is not playing to the level they need him to be playing if they want to be a contender, which the Celtics think they are. The Celtics want to be a contender, and they're not. And a lot of it, I think, is to blame on their starting point guard, Kemba Walker. I'll go with my overrated now. And I'm not sure quite how high rated this guy is. I saw him in top 10 on the list, and I just did not agree. I have Drew Holiday of the Milwaukee Bucks, and like, I don't hate this player. I like him as a player for sure, but I think he's been getting a little too much hype. I think he's nowhere near top 10. I think he could put a lot of guys over him. And at the end of the day, he's just not the most efficient in terms of, minutes. He's 30 plus minutes a game, which, isn't crazy. It's been reduced a little bit since he was in New Orleans last year, but 30 minutes per game, 15.9 points, 5 assists, not horrible, but top 10? I'm not sure. I think as a point guard, you either want to be averaging like as a really good point guard, which people consider Drew Holiday to be, want to either be averaging like 20 plus or something, or like almost 10 assists, maybe like 7, 8 assists. He's not doing either of those things. For the amount of minutes he's playing, he's just been lackluster. The 3 points, it's not super great for a point guard, 37%, which is around average, but I think you want your point guard to be aiming for 40. I mean, that's a very high, I guess. It's pretty high. But I think Drew Holiday's just a bit overrated. I don't think this is anything crazy, though. I think it's just a little bit here. But I'll go with my underrated now. And this one I feel a lot more strongly about. And this is a guy on the Miami Heat. He isn't necessarily a starter, but he means a lot to this team. And what I was kind of talking about with Drew Holiday is inefficiency, but this guy is efficient. His name is Goran Dragic, and this guy is very underrated. I don't think he gets enough credit. He is average like 5 less minutes than Drew Holiday is, just to compare these two guys. And he's averaging roughly the same amount of points, 14 points per game. And the assists, 5 assists per game. So he is right where Drew Holiday is with 5 less minutes. He's shooting the ball very well this year. And what he does too, I think the biggest part of his game is that he's a veteran presence. I was watching a game. The Bulls had this pretty big lead over the Heat, and he led the comeback. And he's been doing that a lot this year. Goran Dragic is a huge part of this team, and for any success they have, he's going to be a big part in it because of, one, his playmaking ability, and two, his veteran presence.
Yeah, I like that pick. And Sammy, my pick is going to shock you.
All right.
The person who I have chosen as my underrated player is an all-star. He's an NBA champion. He was the rookie of the year. He's a 7-time all-star, in fact. Now, you might be thinking, Sammy, Jack, doesn't he have the recognition he deserves? No, he does not. And he is regarded as one of the best players in the NBA, but he doesn't get the recognition that he deserves. And that is none other than Kyrie Irving, according to Basketball Reference, Uncle Drew, Ankle Taker, Kai, and World B Flat. Those are his nicknames. And, he's the third option on that team with James Harden and Kevin Durant. And I think that kind of not discredits what he does, but he's not the focus when you think of the Nets. And he does things with the basketball that have never been done before. And if you look at what he's done this season, he's averaging 28 points a game, 4.8 rebounds, and 5.7 assists. He's shooting 40% from three-point land. He's really been spectacular. And I just feel like some of the stuff he does with the basketball, people have to start thinking of him. You can't say better light because he kind of is thought in as like the best light you can possibly be thought in of, I guess. But, he's just not. He's not. When you think of the Nets, he's not who you think of,
Yeah, I agree. Kyrie's having I mean, he's having an incredible year in a year where, or on a team, I should say, where you have so many options, scoring options. You add Blake Griffin. You have obviously your first guy, KD, and then James Harden. I mean, he is having an incredible year. He's averaging almost 29 points per game, and he's been a huge part, a huge reason that why this team is succeeding. He is playing exceptionally well, and I'm really liking what I'm seeing from Kyrie. I agree. I think at this point he could be a little underrated. I think he's possibly a top 3 point guard right now in the NBA. And I think obviously you have Steph, who's probably number one, right? Damian Lillard is in that conversation always. Kyrie's in that conversation. And, a lot of guys are maybe trying to shove their way in there, maybe like a Jamal Murray, although I don't think he's even really close yet. But I think the point guard position, why we did this is you realize there are a lot of good point guards. It's just a fact. It's very hard to decide. I mean, you got Ben Simmons, who's like you got your good defensive point guards like Ben Simmons, and then guys like Lonzo Ball, who are maybe a little bit bigger guys, and then like Chris Paul, who are just phenomenal playmakers. Steph Curry, Kyrie Irving, guys who can score the ball and pass it with ease. Point guard is a fun position to watch here this time in the NBA. A lot of Hall of Fame guys. I think. I mean, I think Steph Curry is going to be a Hall of Famer. I think Kyrie could be a Hall of Famer. When it's all said and done, I think Damian will be a Hall of Famer. So a lot of great point guards. But before we leave here today, we have to talk about some trade deadline drama because there is some talk around the league. A lot of guys are being rumored to be shipped around. I think the trade deadline, I believe, is in 2 days. So it'll be a day from when you all are listening to this podcast. And well, let's start with Victor Oladipo. And he's probably getting sick of this because he just got traded to the Houston Rockets, who, by the way, just recently snapped a 20-game losing streak, which was pretty ridiculous. But um, he just got traded to Houston. And now Houston looks like 2 months later, they're going to ship him back away. So 2 potential suitors, the Dallas Mavericks and your own New York Knicks. From the Knicks perspective, do you think you're going to go hard after Oladipo, or do you think it's going to be a little hesitant? You're not really willing to give up that much. What do you think is the thought process in terms of trying to get Oladipo? Because he's been a guy that he's been talked about maybe going to the Knicks before possibly in free agency in the near future.
Getting Oladipo would be a massive mistake because he is on that 1 year contract. There's always the possibility that he leaves. And if you're the Knicks right now, you don't want to trade assets for him. You're building something. If you can get a player that can help you in the future, long term, then yeah, I would be 100% go for it. But if you're going to get a player that's only going to help you win this year, then that's not who you're looking for. You don't want to trade any major assets for him. Maybe someone like Lonzo Ball would be a potential Knicks target. I know they have looked into him. He would be someone that I would be interested in because they do need, even with Derrick Rose, they still need a point guard because Emmanuel Quickly is a much better player off ball. But yeah, I think that Victor Oladipo would be a massive mistake.
Interesting. Okay, I've been kind of not really super monitoring the situation, but I've been seeing what's going on, and I agree with you there. I mean, I think if you want to get Oladipo, wait till free agency. It's not that long. The Knicks are not going to win the title this year. They're obviously building towards the future, and if you see something in Oladipo that you like, that you want to have for the future, wait till free agency, sign into a multi-year deal, which could be a mistake because this guy is very injury prone. He hasn't really gotten too much consistent playing time. So I agree with you there. Well, you mentioned Lonzo Ball. Some suitors, you said the Knicks are possibly looking into it. You got the Hawks and my own Chicago Bulls. Is he going to get traded? And if so, where do you think Lonzo's heading?
I think that some possible areas for Lonzo to go are, the Knicks, like I said, the Bulls, the Hawks. I think those are the big three. I can't really see him going another place, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I don't. I honestly don't know if he's going to get traded. I think the Hawks have a pretty. I don't think they really want to give up too much. I think like John Collins is possibly on the board, but they want a lot from him. I saw they asked Jalen Brown and Lonzo Ball is not near the caliber player Jaylen Brown is. So
Yeah.
I think you have to. I don't think he's going to get dealt. I think the Bulls are looking to build something as opposed to shifting things around. I think they have a lot of super young pieces, and I don't think they'd be willing to, I guess, ruffle the leaves with that by making a trade for Lonzo Ball. But with that, unfortunately today, I believe that we are done. It's been a fun episode. A lot of sports going on. It's full swing. March is crazy. Everything's going on at once. It's just crazy. So we are glad that you guys listened all the way to the end. Thank you. We appreciate it. Fun episode. Jack,
As
what do you gotta
always,
say? Here as always. As what is this? 50. I think this is 58. So it's been a grind, man. Thank you for listening here today.
yeah, it's been a grind. Great episode, as always, as Sammy says.
As
And
always.
yeah, we'll see you guys next time in the latest episode of Chatter from the Cheap Seat. Sammy, take us out.
Bye.